Hey, Sporty
Hey,
Shorty, how
what's
you
going
doing
on?
today?
All right, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Same here.
So, what we talking about today? We had a
Going to talk about three fights that took place on Showtime on Saturday night.
uh-huh,
First fight was Antoine Gary Russell, or Gary Antoine Russell, he goes by.
uh-huh,
Gary Russell Jr.'s little brother.
uh-huh.
He fought this guy named Bartholomew, Puerto Rican fighter. With that fight, got stopped early. It was a good fight. It was an action-packed fight. Got stopped very early, or fairly early, prematurely as far as I saw it. Gary Antoine Russell, he knocked down Bartholomew. Bartholomew was a little wobbled. He got up and beat the count. He looked to be steady on his feet by that time. The ref counted. The ref looked into his eyes and stopped the fight.
So let me ask you a question there. Just stopping right there.
Right.
Seemed to me, doesn't the ref usually stop counting once the fighter gets up off the floor?
Yeah,
'Cause
generally.
he seemed like he was still
It
counting.
seemed like he counted a little bit longer to me. That's what I saw. I don't know if he was looking to the side for the count or what it was, but the fighter definitely beat the count, so he didn't get called out for the count. He beat the count, but the ref, it seemed like the ref saw something that he didn't like in the fighter's eyes. The broadcast, you couldn't really see the fighter's eyes at that point, so it's
Yeah, we
hard
needed
for
a
the
different angle
yeah,
on
it
that
was
one,
hard
huh?
for the public to really say for sure, what the condition was. But based on how he was fighting prior to that, and based on what he looked like in terms of getting up, and he seemed fairly steady on his feet by that time, to me it seemed like he should have been able to continue on
It didn't really seem
because the fight was fairly
it
close
was
at that
close,
point.
right? There
Yeah,
were no real indicators
no,
on why the ref would have made a decision like that, huh?
right.
Does it seem a little fishy, maybe?
To me, it was premature. I think he stopped the fight prematurely, but again, it's hard to say based on what the ref saw. A lot of times, a fighter's eyes will glass over, and a lot of times that's an indication that the fight should be stopped. Sometimes the guy's eyes are not focused, so sometimes that's another indication of stopping the fight. We don't know that because we couldn't see. But it appeared that the fighter was okay. The fighter even got upset when the ref stopped the fight. It seemed like he was able to continue. His corner definitely thought he was able to continue because they were very upset. I think he should have let the fight continue on at that point and maybe see if he gets knocked down again. Maybe you stop it at that point. But or to see if he's still wobbly, which he didn't appear to be to me. But I thought the fight could have continued, at least to end that round, or maybe give him another round after that to see what happens.
Right.
Because he seems like he could have recovered. It seemed like he had all his senses at that point. So,
Okay.
in my opinion, the fight was stopped a little bit too early.
So you think there'll be will the commission do kind of like a deep dive into the stoppage, or you think it's just
That I'm not
it's
sure.
just it?
They might just let it go. They might, because they wouldn't even let the ref comment after the fight. So I'm sure the commission stepped in and said they didn't want the ref to comment. So I'm pretty sure they'll talk to the referee. And at that point, I don't know what will happen, but they probably won't do a deep investigation. I guess it was a judgment call. And refs are allowed to make judgment calls.
Okay.
So I think that's where that will end, more than likely. But that's really all I have on that fight. I just would have wished that the fight would have been able to continue, and hopefully he'll get a rematch.
In the second fight?
Second fight was Adam Kornacki. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's from Poland, and he fights out of Brooklyn. He fought a Turkish fighter named Ali Demirizin. It was a heavyweight fight.
And he was favored to win, right?
Kornacki, I believe, was favored to win that fight. He's a pretty good fighter, but he's lost his last 3 fights now. So I'm pretty sure he's gonna have to reassess what his career is gonna be going forward, whether he wants to continue fighting or not. Konaki started off strong. About the first 2 or 3 rounds, he fought pretty well. Demirzin came back in that fight, and it seemed like Konaki he got inactive. You know, he was fighting pretty well, and then I think he got winded. He slowed down. I don't know what his condition is like. It seemed like he came into the fight lighter than he normally fights, which was an indication that his stamina would probably be better. But at probably midway through that fight, it seems like he got very inactive, and he just, I don't know. He seemed like he lost some confidence in that fight.
Do you think maybe it was a mental thing?
I have a feeling. I have a feeling that he's just not mentally there anymore. Like totally confident.
Wow.
You know, his older fights, you could see that he had a lot of confidence. He's a heavyweight fighter that's known to throw a lot of punches throughout a fight. And his activity slowed down midway through that fight. Demirzin, on the other hand, you know, he was steady throughout the whole fight. You know, he was connecting on pretty good combinations, and he fought a good, steady fight, and he won the fight. He won the fight. There's probably people that would say that Konaki won the fight, but there's no way. There's no way he won that. It's just he didn't win the fight. There's a lot of people that root for him. They fought in the Barclays Center, which obviously is in Brooklyn. Konaki lives in Brooklyn, so he had a lot of support. But he didn't win that fight. You know, he just didn't have it. You know, he didn't have it. He started off well, and somehow he lost that momentum, and he never was able to regain it during the fight.
I see.
Yeah, so I don't really know what's gonna happen with his career.
And you know what? That's actually a very good segue into the main event, which was Garcia and
It was Garcia, and it was Jose Benavidez Jr.
And he kept his mentals up throughout.
Yeah,
And, you know, tell us about the fight, and then we can, you know, after you give us kind of the recap on the fight itself, you can talk about how his fight, as far as his mental stamina, differed from the second fight.
Right. Well, Danny Garcia, he had a 19-month layoff. He normally fights at 147. He came back and fought at 154 in this fight. His first time fighting at 154. He looked good. He looked very good. He came in the ring. He as he's used to doing. He got his combinations off. He fought steady. He's working his jab. He started very well, and he was very steady throughout the fight. As the fight actually went on, he picked up momentum, and he fought a great fight, as most Danny Garcia fights are. And he looked confident. On the other hand, Jose Benavidez Jr., a lot of inactivity in the fight. You know, he fought pretty well early on, but he showed a lot of bravado, a lot of antics in the ring. Wasn't really getting his shots off the way that Danny Garcia was.
And he landed very few punches throughout the entire fight, right?
Yeah, I mean, as the fight went on, he landed fewer and fewer punches. He kind of was out there posing, and he was letting Danny Garcia hit him plenty of times. And Garcia, you know, he did what he was supposed to do. You know, he landed his shots, and Benavidez missed a lot of his, and he really couldn't get a rhythm. And Danny Garcia wouldn't let him get a rhythm. You know, and Jose Benavidez Jr., in a lot of ways, he hurt himself in the fight just by not being active. You know, he was able to take Danny Garcia's shots, but they still count.
And he saw that as kind of all he needed to do was to be able to withstand the punches.
Right. You don't get any points for not punching.
You don't get points for withstanding punches.
For standing around and posing and proving to the other fighter that you can take his shots. Those shots that he's hitting him with still count. So I don't know what Jose Benavidez Jr.'s his strategy was. you know what it was. It just didn't work. You know, you're not getting points for not punching. So it was a very strong comeback for Danny Garcia, and I was happy for him. I was very happy for him. Um, Danny Garcia, after the fight, Jim Gray was talking to him, and it appears that he's had some mental issues, thus the 19-month layoff. And he was very candid with what he was going through. He was facing some anxiety and some depression issues over that span of 19 months. And he's still going through it. And the weight of everything he was going through came out in that ring on Saturday night. Because during the interview, he lost it. He started crying, you know, and you could tell how hurt he was, you know, and he was just so happy to be back in the ring. He was hurt and happy at the same time. And it was just, it was remarkable to see that, that he actually let that out in the ring in a so-called macho sport like boxing.
Right.
For him to just express all that emotion.
Right.
And be so open.
And candid.
Yeah, and being open and candid with what he's dealing with. I mean, there's so many fighters that can learn from that, and so many people in general that can learn from that. You know, the fact that he's open, and I'm pretty sure he's going to help somebody just by being so open and honest with what he's been going through.
And recognizing that he needed to take that time off.
Yes.
Like sometimes you just kind of need some time to yourself. You know, it's okay to take a break, and you don't have to be going and on at all times. Sometimes you just need to kind of take a step back and regroup mentally.
Yeah, it's an important lesson for everyone. You know, and I was happy for him that he was able to display that and be so gracious and so classy about it. And just you know, let it out. You know, I think it was important for him to let it out. And it was important for him to let it out inside the ring. I think that was a good release for him. You could tell that he's probably been bottling a lot of stuff up. And I think it was just getting back to what he actually loves to do and being able to do it at such a high level.
Right.
You know, I think that's remarkable, and I think it's a great example for everybody to take note of.
Well, yeah, that's a good message there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to wrap this up.
Sure is.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the fight on Saturday night, and
Very welcome.
we look forward to talking to you again real soon.
All right, Sporty Shorty.
All right, take care.
All right.